I'm just gonna share some things that I've experienced in my childhood and my teenage years, and you can understand this as it translates in what's known as a Nomi planet and a Nobi stealth code when it comes to guardians. Okay, um, which can be translated a number of different ways, but one of which can be that we know what's going on before they know what's going on, and how that applies to a quantum probability function, right? And how that applies to, if you will, artificial light, artificial consciousness, dead light magnets, which is dead light consciousness, that has the ability to do what? Run numbers. And those numbers are geographical sound and light patterns of predicting the difference between future, past, back to the future, based on the behavioral algorithms of what can be predicted they will experience in the future by giving consent to experience that. So the way that I tie this is I see things, for example, that my clan mother puts up that I was aware of at the age of 16 before she was ever born. Okay. So what we're talking about here is how much are you aware of, right? So if you were aware of this when you were a child, how come you weren't banging the drum back then that they're going to start putting 5G towers up 30 years from now and mobilize the community, prevent it by raising the state of awareness across the planet? You see how that plays out? So I bring this back full circle to when I was a child when it comes to programming. And it's one of the reasons why when I see stuff that represents what they are rather than what I am, which is what love is, buy, delete, uninstall, delete, uninstall. Because that's how it works. You're a mirror. We're a mirror, a magnetic mirror. What we project and choose to experience, hold in memory that we experience in the future is consent. So I don't give consent to experience when I was a child, turn the TV off, turn the channel off, turn the phone off. Because the technology, which is all the laptops and everybody uses, is running on what? Artificial dead light consciousness. So you're choosing to have a relationship with something that's dead, which is a black hole. So as long as you're choosing to use the technology that is represented by black hole, you're held captive to black hole technology. Now, even though I mentioned this to my clan mother, right? Has my clan mother done anything different since then? Other than using it as a platform to communicate the same thing that was being communicated to me when I was a child, which is death cult programming. It's much like Patty Broussard said. It's very true. What you choose to get energy to is what you're going to experience holographically. That's your movie player. So how much of what you experience in your own mirror is based on the energy that represents what you are in soul, consciousness, and spirit? Because this I know since I was a child. Because I began measuring, and measurement simply means what we experience in our mirror. The changes that are taking place as a result of the work that guardians are doing, right? And the success that we're having as a result therein. Because what happens to change, and what Patty said, was a vibrational change in perception, which means what we're experiencing in our mirror is no longer what we're experiencing in our mirror before, because now we're experiencing God's love in our mirror. Therefore, the perception that I have of what I project and I experience back in my mirror by the speed, which is the holographic speed of the event horizon, if you will, the space arc, what we experience in our space, is what love is. That's why I don't experience what they experience, right? So it's like I exist in a different vector that's unaffected by the things that are projected to me, because that's not what I am. That's not what God experiences. So now we're back to healing. And another video that I just watched a few minutes ago about archetypes, archetypes. And this lady on this channel, and I can't remember her name, but she's a beautiful, I don't think of age. I just think of the information that's being presented on another microphone in the mirror. And she talked about adults and healing. And I mentioned before, okay, particularly as it relates to my father and my child, and particularly when it relates to a soul and a spirit that's coming in. at the level at which they're operating at may not be at the same operating level that your own parents are operating at. And I know that by virtue of the experiences that I had when I was a child, being a parent to my children. Being a parent to my parents. Because I was aware of the programming that both my parents were running, even though both my mother and my biological father were angels. Because I picked my biological family to come in at a very precise stealth code speed. Come to the gate, right? Hey, we're here. Plug in this little kid. And so the difficulty that I found, even with myself in this, about being overly consumed by just a constant barrage every day when you're on the internet of everything that's being put up that deals with trauma. Reinforce the trauma, reinforce the trauma, reinforce the trauma and the triggers. And it's just like, man, God, please stop, right? Turn the channel, throw the phone away, and it stops, doesn't it? So this is why I try and remember I need to spend more time with Mama out on the rock, grinding my feet with her like when I was a little child, spending more time in nature than I am with the communication technology that was set up, that was weaponized, right? So that's like the pot calling the kettle black. Remember that? A black hole? Using black hole technology to experience it. So now we're back to attachments. What we're choosing to have is a relationship. It's just like the experience that I had here in 2019 at Lop Lop Hoi Hoi. When I was, I'm leaving, bye. It's like going back up the fire pole. And I had to slow myself down and go, no, I'm not done yet. And the reason I wasn't done yet was to experience in the future, if you want to think of it as future, I was going to experience the future success, experience more of what I become aware of as a result of what we're doing behind the scenes, the invisible landscape. And I have happily been able to experience that, right? So I watched another video that my friend Kanjoy showed me. Bless your heart, young man, whose child, where he pulled up his camera and was talking about his child being in the present moment. Can he be in the present moment? Can he just realize in a present moment how loved he is, right? Or loved that you are. The love that you experience as a result of the love that we have for all of you. And being able to experience that through your own heart and soul. And why I've mentioned in the past that it's a lot easier to work with a child when they're starting out in magic mode to experience eternal love through their own mother and their father. And how this relates to my childhood when I realized, even through my own parents and the parents of other children, I was experiencing abuse on a planetary scale between, if you will, the mothers and fathers that give birth to a species, no matter what species it is, by the way, okay, and their future reproductive algorithms, or if you will, the future of them to successfully reproduce over time space. So this is where conservation biology comes in and goes that the species or the unit of consciousness that's going to have the shortest lifespan and will implode is what? A Whack-A-Mole, which are electron thieves. So now we're into how fast electrons are being sucked versus how fast electrons are being donated. And that's a torque speed differential, right? Between a white hole and a white hole, if you will. The light is always on, experiencing the eternal sun that we experience through us, which is eternal unconditional love, right? And so it's just like in childhood. Aaron lives in this house. Aaron and two other people are in this house, and so I experience what they do every day. See, as a result of lack of healing, right? So I do what I can and put a bubble of love around this house every day, so that nothing happens to them, to protect them, no matter what. You know, it can overwhelm you if you don't remember who you are, right? And how that works with assimilation, right? Particularly with children that become adults. Because I know this through experience. Children, even in the womb, and this is true even passed down through cellular memories in a universe of consciousness that you're connected to, where a soul has experienced trauma or a loss of life as a result of a virus in a computer, a biocomputer. Okay? So you have a state of consciousness that takes an original design, and now it's learning how the original design came to be, and then chooses to tweak it in order to suit its own what? Self-interest. Why? Because it fell. Now it has to maintain what it's aware of in energy because it lost its God connection to an eternal sun. Now it's not experiencing the single point from which we all began, that we have a communication, open line of communication to. That's an open receiver, which is an open retenor. So if you've got a receiver able to receive a signal, right, the primal sound and light currents, then you still got a God connection, right? That's stealth code, which is pre-matter phase consciousness. Now we're in matter, now we're not. Because the speed at which those two occur is so fast, you don't notice it. You're just in and out, right? So that's why when you think of layers and layers and layers, it just collapse. They're just gone. They're gone. They're gone. But you're not gone. Your pure state of consciousness, which is the pure state of love, which is eternal love, you're still experiencing what it is that you are, which is the energy that you are, which is what love is. So it starts with children and who their spiritual guides are. So you can pull this full circle again to why they kill off clan mothers and those that are, as we put it, higher states of consciousness that are operating at higher levels because we're pulling higher currents, right? When you think about the 144, the 12-strand DNA, it simply means that you have greater bandwidth. In other words, it's like having a radio station. Well, how many frequencies can you tune into? All of them. An eternal sun can tune into wherever it needs to tune into and balance those waves out, right? In order for what? People to experience harmony. Harmony in the waves. Harmony in the radio waves. The spirit of the radio. So it's about learning how to do what? Self-tune the music. Music that we play, which is the music of God. God's music, which is what love is. The love for music. So it means you know how to tune the sounds, the sound instruments. Tuning the sound, tuning the sonic tones to experience the harmony and balance within your own radio set. Now when those are boomed out as scalar waves, that's going to affect in a positive way the planetary consciousness ecosphere, right? So it's a difference between how we experience who we are and the manner in which we use the energy that we do in order to heal those that are here, because that's essentially what it is. A healing planet is a Nomi planet, is a noble planet. So I'm going to go out and spend some more time on the rock today. I'm on the rock, but grounded out here and spend more time out there than I have been, particularly given what's going on right now. But it's the hardest thing that I've ever known, not really the hardest thing, but because I think of my childhood, because I never left, I'm still there in that space, experiencing what I was experiencing then and the value that it had, and acknowledging that when you think of being in a free will universe and not imposing your will on somebody else, and I know this because of the experiences that I had being in so many rooms with other alcoholics and drug addicts who had experienced such an enormous amount of pain and suffering as a result of the trauma they experienced by being here, and what it takes to find your way back, and how many actually find their way back. right? To experience God's love again, right? When they're not experiencing any reason in which to do that, because they're not experiencing it in the environment in which they found themselves. It's one of the reasons why I mentioned, I've said this to Aaron and his friends, but I know this from my own youth. We used to have an old saying, and it's funny that it's also three, which was to change your playpens, your playthings, and your playmates, which means now you're operating in a different energetic environment of different energetic units of consciousness that are having a negative impact on our consciousness, right? And so Asha Diana covered that about different places on the planet. We talked about blending or the D13 reversal current. So that's why I know that, because of where I've been, by the reason that I go to the places that I do when I'm there, and the reason that I'm there when I'm there, where I'm there. Because it's not the same everywhere. You know, just like the roadmap that I took just in the last year was zigzagging all over the place, right? And so some places feel, ooh, yeah, it's good here, right? And then all of a sudden you come into other places, well, it's dense. Well, it's higher here, it's denser here, depending on where you're at, right? Because your antennas are so hypersensitive, which is hyperspeed. And so it simply means their antennas pick up on everything, which are the subtle changes, the subtle tones of everything that's going on, you know? So anyway, and this is, and this, what's really funny about this is that when I come on here and I share all these things, it doesn't really matter, does it? Does anything that I have to say actually going to impact what you choose to do of your own free will in your life? Okay. Is it going to cause a course of change in somebody? I'll tell you how I learned this. Alcoholics Anonymous. People can go in there and listen to war stories all day long about how much crap they've been through, how much trauma they've experienced, spiritual wars they've been in, right? So I have an RH negative up the road here I've spent a lot of time with. So I use two words: means testing. Means testing. Oh, that sounds like a pretty good idea, that I'm listening to somebody else. I think I might try that. Right? Now we're into trust issues, right? Now we're into experiments. I think I'm going to experiment and see what happens. Just like when I was a kid growing up, the first time somebody offered me to smoke a joint. Hey, what's this? Right? So I knew my friend doesn't go around harming people. And I don't believe that my friend is going to give me something to try that I had never experienced before. So I wonder what this experience is going to be like. Is this experience going to harm me? Well, if you're fearless, right, and you know that you've experienced an eternal love through your heart, you'll bounce back no matter what that experience was informing you of, which means you're learning. And so I realized when I took a couple of hits off that doobie, as they were called back then, they had a lot of different names for them. Now we're back to fire letters. And letters are numbers, and numbers are energy. Letters are energy. Fire codes, right? And so, whoa, mellow. This mellows you out. Wow, that's a different state. Well, I'm experiencing the state of the consciousness of the plant, right? The atmospherics. How it changes the atmospherics. The ethers. And so remember Jimi Hendrix? Are you experienced? How experienced are you? Experience is the informer, right? And so now we're experiencing through the information, which are the codes, the experiments, the breeding experiments, right? Which are the codes, which are code transfers, which are signets, which are signals, right? The antenna, the radio set, picking up on the codes, the signals, the signets, the signals intelligence. Hey, I'm getting the codes. I'm getting the line of communication. I'm getting those code transfers. Right? So now what is that consciousness experiencing as a result of that code, as a result of that DNA? Right? The frequencies, the modulation. Frequency modulation running a radio set. So the lady had talked about adults and trauma that's yet to heal, and I know that because I know how difficult it is. That even as much help as those that I have had relationships with, because what it is you're measuring the density or the blockages, the circuits that haven't cleared in order for them to experience what? Pure light, pure eternal light, which is living light and living spirit through an oversoul. Okay? And what I've found through my experience is fear, because of the way that trauma works with an amnesic barrier and what we call the dissociative identity disorder, which how many identities are out there that represent the original, that are experiencing an alternate universe, a parallel universe? Whoa, that's called Lost in Space. Remember the movie Lost in Space? A piece of what they once were with in consciousness is no longer experiencing what they were in consciousness, which is what love is. Now it's experiencing being in a hole and doesn't know the difference. That's how assimilation takes place in a black hole. Now you don't know the difference between God's love and being in a black hole. And now you get into the torque speed differential about how much of what we are in light is being projected as images that change the holographic perspective, which change the holographic projecting screen of what we're using our energy to project that others experience, that trigger trauma in order to maintain what? That attachment to that black hole and that technology that runs on black hole technology. That's the truth of it. Anyway, have a beautiful day. The sun is out. Clear skies ahead. Be good to yourselves. Aloha. Mua. Mua. The language of Mua.